Coming up on Arirang News. The winter season is in full swing in South Korea, with snow falling all day today in most parts of the country. We go to one of the busiest transport hubs in the capital and see how people made it through the snow to get home. South Korea's Nat'l Assembly passes a number of special bills, ranging from a ban on dog meat to the launch of a new space agency and the reopening of the probe into Itaewon crowd crush. Samsung Electronics last year, according to its preliminary data, logged its lowest operating profit since the 2008 global financial crisis. Driven by sluggish semiconductors, it's down nearly 85% compared to the year before. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We begin with snow blanketing the entire country today. The central regions have been especially hit hard, prompting the issuance of heavy snow advisories. Our Song Yoo-jin leads our coverage tonight. It snowed almost all day long on Tuesday. Seoul saw at least 2.8 centimeters of snow, and parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces saw 4 centimeters. The country's weather agency predicts that by Wednesday, most regions will get up to 8 centimeters. But Chungcheongbuk-do, Gangwon-do, and Jeollabuk-do provinces might get up to more than 10 centimeters. But what's causing this?
It's because of a snow cloud belt originating from the West Sea. It's currently making its way southeast across the country.
In response, at 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, the Interior Ministry activated its Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters Level 1 response measures, the lowest on the 3-tier system. This means the swift removal of snow from roads. The ministry also upgraded its 4-step snow alert level from the lowest interest to the second lowest caution. Heading into the evening, the streets were bustling with commuters bundled up, clutching umbrellas and treading very carefully due to the amount of snow on the sidewalks.
It's hard to see snow in Busan, so it's kind of cool to see the snowfall in Seoul.
Maybe to be a bit cautious about slipping because the floor is very wet and slippery.
For safety, using public transport is highly recommended. But for those who do intend to drive or have no choice to, make sure to drive slowly and keep safe distances from other vehicles. And for those who have them, snow chains are recommended. Also, tune into the latest weather updates, bundle up, and be careful because roads and sidewalks are slippery. So the weather agency says snow will continue until Tuesday night in the capital regions and in most parts of the country until Wednesday morning. However, some coastal regions of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsangbuk-do provinces might experience snow until Wednesday afternoon. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News. Shifting gears, the nation's presidential office has added a new economic security division to tackle a growing list of supply chain and industry-related issues that affect South Korean livelihoods. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea's National Security Council has established a new division focusing on economic and cybersecurity. On Tuesday, President Yoon Suk-yeol's office said the nation's top security body created a third deputy position to, quote, take a more organic and systematic response to complex security crises.
This comes as Seoul addresses a growing range of new emerging threats to national security, affecting the livelihoods and safety of South Koreans beyond their traditional security concerns posed by North Korea.
With supply chain disruptions becoming commonplace along with fierce global competition to master core and emerging technologies, gaining economic security and a lead in science and technology determines both economic prospects and military capabilities. The Yoon administration over the past year has focused on building cooperation in supply chains for materials that are critical for future technologies, as well as research and development in defense and other strategic industries. Under National Security Advisor Chang Ho-jin, Principal Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho will continue directing pressing issues in foreign affairs and security, as well as the overall policies of the National Security Council as its Secretary General. Second Deputy Advisor Lee Sung-han will focus on national defense and military issues and oversee the national crisis management system. The new third deputy, expected to be appointed in the coming days, will take over emerging security issues. On top of supply chains, export controls and nuclear power plants, two secretaries will assist with policies to promote cooperation on core and emerging technologies, as well as technology protection and the field of cybersecurity. Yoon's office says revamping the council to address such issues is expected to contribute to improving the competitiveness of Korean companies and stabilizing people's livelihoods across the export-dependent economy. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's military plans on resuming artillery drills on land and at sea. This follows Seoul having declared yesterday that there'll no longer be a buffer zone, which was set beyond the DMZ under the Inter-Korean Military Pact signed in 2018. But when asked whether this could mean the termination of the military pact, the Defense Ministry said interministerial consultation is needed. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung explains.
The South Korean military recently announced that the buffer zones set up along the inter-Korean border are no longer effective following North Korea's continued artillery fire off its western coast. The buffer zones were set up in 2018 when the two Koreas signed an inter-Korean military agreement to halt hostilities near the border. First, on the ground, a 5-kilometer buffer zone was established in the north and south from the military demarcation line. Here, artillery fire and regimental or higher-level field maneuvers were suspended. In the maritime buffer zone at sea, all coastal and naval artillery as well as maritime exercises were banned. In the air, a no-fly zone banned aircraft from flying within 20 kilometers of the MDL in the western section of the demilitarized zone and within 40 kilometers of the zone in the east. For the first time in 6 years, South Korea last week conducted artillery drills within the maritime buffer zone in response to the North's artillery firing. The Defense Ministry on Tuesday revealed plans to resume artillery exercises in the buffer zone on land as well.
As you know, due to the September 19th military agreement, there were restrictions on large-scale regiment-level maneuver training and artillery fire training within 5 kilometers from the MDL. So there were some limitations in establishing a readiness posture in border areas with frontline units. I believe that such issues will be resolved and each unit will be able to train in better conditions.
However, when asked if the abolition of the buffer zone means the termination of the Inter-Korean Military Pact, the ministry said this is an issue that requires necessary consultation between relevant ministries.
The Defense Ministry seems to be responding to North Korea's provocations, while the government is thinking there's no need for us to be the first to destroy the military pact, as it's already dead.
The expert added that it would be difficult for Pyongyang to pose a direct threat as long as the South Korean military remains on high alert. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
At the Nat'l Assembly, South Korea's lawmakers passed a number of special bills this afternoon, ranging from a ban on dog meat to the launch of a new space agency and the reopening of the probe into Itaewon crowd crush. Our correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
Lawmakers at the National Assembly's plenary session on Tuesday approved special bills that will establish South Korea's new space agency and that will ban dog meat consumption in the country. The special act for the establishment and operation of a new space agency passed with 263 approvals and 3 abstentions. The new space agency, which the Science Ministry has dubbed the Korea Aerospace Administration, or KASA, is expected to launch in Sacheon, Gyeongsang-namdo Province as early as this May. The agency will carry out research and development, policy making, industry promotion, international cooperation, and more in the field of aerospace. In response to the bill's approval, President Yoon Suk-yeol said South Korea has taken a great step toward becoming a major space power. Meanwhile, the so-called Dog Meat Ban Act passed with 208 approvals and 2 abstentions. It prohibits all processes of dog consumption, including the breeding, slaughtering, and selling of dogs. Punishment for slaughtering dogs for consumption will be up to 3 years in prison or a fine of up to around $23,000 US. For the breeding and selling of dogs for eating, offenders could face up to 2 years in prison or fines of up to around $15,000. There will be a grace period of 3 years to allow for related businesses to prepare for closure. The opposition, amid a PPP walkout, also unilaterally passed an act that calls for further investigation into the Itaewon crowd crush in 2022. The act supports the formation of a special investigation committee so that those responsible for the disaster can be penalized. The PPP opposed the bill, saying that this would incite political strife, and held a rally in protest. Eyes are now on whether President Yoon Suk-yeol will exercise his right to veto the bill. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
And the main political parties have agreed to hold an extraordinary National Assembly session from next Monday to February 8th. This follows the conclusion of the current extraordinary parliamentary session. The ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party also agreed to convene 2 plenary sessions on the January 25th and February 1st. Eyes are on whether contentious proposals on the special probe into First Lady Kim Gun-hee and the so-called Daejangdong 5 billion won club will be brought to a revote after President Yoon Suk-yeol vetoed them last week. Moving on. President Yoon Suk-yeol, attending a gathering for people in arts and culture on Tuesday, emphasized the power of culture and showed his appreciation for those who serve in creative industries. He also reflected on the moment he sang American Pie in Washington, D.C. last year, saying it had a greater impact than the rest of the events during his trip. Known as the industry's biggest of the year, Tuesday's event was held at Seoul Arts Center with around 150 people in attendance. He also joined the crowd for the 2024 New Year concert, which brought together classical musicians from 12 different orchestras nationwide to play in front of 2,000 invitees from various backgrounds, such as veterans and their families and volunteers. Samsung Electronics last year, according to its preliminary data, logged its lowest operating profit since the 2008 global financial crisis. Driven by sluggish semiconductors, it's down nearly 85% compared to the year before. But some suggest a different outlook this year. Our Park Gun-woo has the details.
South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics saw its lowest annual operating profits in 15 years in 2023. According to preliminary data revealed by the company on Tuesday, operating profits came to 6.54 trillion won, or around $5 billion, a drop of 84.92% from the year before. It's the lowest that yearly operating profits have fallen since 2008. An expert explained about the reasons behind the fall in profit.
The drop was due to shrinking chip demand for IT products that led to excessive supply and price drops as the global economy worsened last year.
Samsung's Device Solutions division that manages its chip business saw a cumulative deficit of approximately $9.1 billion from the first to third quarter last year. Operating profits started to improve in the fourth quarter due to a reduction in production and chip inventories. Meanwhile, despite on-quarter operating profits for previous quarters last year, the fourth quarter saw a drop compared to the previous year. In the fourth quarter alone, operating profits fell around 35% compared to the year before, to around $2.1 billion, falling short of the London Stock Exchange Group's smart estimate of around $2.8 billion. But the expert forecast a brighter future for the chipmaker in 2024.
Expect an earnings rebound from the second and third quarter due to a surge in chip prices seen since the fourth quarter of last year, as well as higher foundry orders.
He said he expects the company to see improvements by the second and third quarters. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
In the U.S., one of the most powerful tech events in the world, the Consumer Electronics Show, is kicking off in Las Vegas. And artificial intelligence is likely to take center stage at CES this year. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young has a preview.
The world's largest tech show, the Consumer Electronics Show, where visitors can be among the first to experience global tech trends, is about to kick off in Las Vegas on Tuesday local time. Under the theme of All Together, All On, this year's trade show focuses on using innovative technology to tackle global issues. The combined exhibition area covers a vast space of over 240,000 square meters, a 30% increase from last year. Some 3,500 companies from 150 countries are taking part. From South Korea, around 760 companies, including startups and major players like LG Electronics, Samsung Electronics, Hyundai Motor Group, and SK, will showcase their latest cutting-edge technologies. This makes Korea the third largest country in terms of participation after the US and China. At CES 2024, AI developments in a variety of fields, including home appliances, healthcare, and automotive, are expected to take center stage. Ahead of the opening, South Korea's tech giants unveiled a range of next-generation TVs. LG Electronics presented the world's first wireless transparent OLED TV, the LG Signature OLED T. When turned off, it's practically invisible, blending into the surroundings and making the space feel bigger. And you can see beyond the screen and move it freely thanks to its transparent screen and wireless technology. It is complemented by top-notch picture quality and LG OLED, powered by the new Alpha 11 AI processor. Samsung Electronics revealed its latest QLED and micro LED TVs. The announcement also conveyed plans to open what the firm calls the era of AI screen, with the introduction of a next-generation AI processor set to redefine the perception of smart display capabilities.
Samsung's AI screen is powered by on-device AI technology. We will be the centerpiece of your AI home, connecting all your devices to offer more flexible and diverse lifestyle, with no boundaries on or off screen.
With curiosity about how AI will break down barriers in various industries, the 4-day event is expected to attract over 130,000 people from around the world. 신하영, Arirang News.
On the local front, the latest trade data shows that South Korea's current account surplus extended for 7 months in a row in November on the back of a rise in exports led by semiconductors and automobiles. Our An Sung-jin has more.
South Korea's current account balance for November last year saw surplus yet again on the back of improving exports. According to preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the current account balance saw monthly surplus for the 7th consecutive month, with the surplus for November standing at $4.06 billion. The goods account saw a surplus of $7 billion in November, nearly $2 billion higher than the month before, as exports saw strong performance and imports fell. Exports saw an on-year increase of 7% on the back of an improvement in the semiconductor industry and a recovery in trade with China.
Automobile exports continued their strong performance, and semiconductor exports saw a hike, recording a 10.8% on-year increase, the first on-year increase since July 2022.
In terms of region, exports to U.S. rose by 24.7% compared to the year before, while exports to both Japan and Southeast Asia increased by 11%. Imports fell by 8% compared to the previous year on a drop in fossil fuel prices. Meanwhile, a services account which tracks the inflow and outflow of business services, tourism, and transportation recorded a $2.13 billion deficit. The widening deficit compared to October is largely attributed to fewer tourists from Southeast Asia and China, combined with more Koreans traveling and spending money abroad. The accumulated current account balance surplus from January to November last year is $27.4 billion, which is $300 million more than for the same period in 2022. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
In other news, the nation's pension payouts are going up. The Ministry of Health and Welfare announced on Tuesday that pension payments are going up by 3.6% starting this month, in line with the rate of consumer inflation from the previous year. With the increase, old age pension recipients who receive an average of 620,000 won as of November will now receive around 640,000 won, or around $488. Starting in July, both the upper and lower thresholds for the standard monthly income used to calculate pension premiums will also go up. Over in Japan, The number of people killed in the New Year's Day earthquake has risen to 180 as of Tuesday afternoon. Officials in Ishikawa Prefecture say more than 120 people are still unaccounted for, while more than 3,000 in the Noto region remain isolated. Search and recovery crews are sifting through the city of Wajima near the earthquake's epicenter, and more than 200 buildings were burned down by a massive fire sparked during the disaster. Japan's meteorological agency is warning of possible quakes over the coming month with upper 5 or more intensity on Japan's 0 to 7 seismic scale. Russia has refused to comment on claims made by the U.S. that it had fired North Korean missiles at Ukrainian targets. When asked about this accusation on Tuesday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia is leaving it with no comment. Instead, he accused Ukraine of using missiles produced by Western nations, including the U.S., Germany, France, and Italy, to strike civilian targets in Russia. His remarks come after the White House said last week that Russia used short-range ballistic missiles from North Korea to conduct strikes against Ukraine. In the Middle East, an Israeli strike has reportedly killed one of Hezbollah's high-ranking officials. This amid fears of war escalation beyond Gaza. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
Hezbollah says one of its top-ranking commanders has been killed in an Israeli attack in southern Lebanon. Lebanon state media said Wissam Tawil, who is considered one of the most prominent figures in the Lebanese militant group, was killed in an Israeli airstrike that targeted a car that the commander was in. According to AFP, Tawil had a leading role in managing Hezbollah's operations in the south of Lebanon. However, Israel did not comment on the attack, but it did say it had hit Hezbollah targets in response to cross-border attacks. Regarding the war in Gaza Strip, the office of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a joint statement from both the Prime Minister and Defense Chief Yoav Gallant, where the two stressed that the war there would not end anytime soon and that it would continue for many months. They also called for international support in order for them to continue the fighting in Gaza. Speaking to the New York Times, Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Daniel Hagari said its military has begun a new, less intensive phase in its war against Hamas in Gaza. He added that the new phase means fewer ground troops and airstrikes. The comments came hours before U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Israel to discuss the transition to the next phase in fighting and preventing the conflict from spreading. Meanwhile, Blinken sent a message of warning to the Houthi militants in Yemen, saying they will face consequences for continued attacks on ships in the Red Sea. Blinken told reporters Monday in Saudi Arabia that some 40 countries have called on Houthis to stop their attacks. The top American diplomat also made stops in Turkey, Greece, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates in quick succession before his visit to Israel. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Snow is piling up all over the country. A heavy snow warning has been issued in Seoul, as up to 10 centimeters are expected until late at night. As snow clouds are affecting Seoul and Gangwon-do province, snow warnings have been expanded to central and northern regions. Since the afternoon, the snow has become thicker and more areas are forecast to receive snow. With a heavy snow warning, up to 20 centimeters are in the forecast for the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province until tomorrow. Inland areas of Gyeonggi-do province, Chungcheongbuk-do province, and the Gyeongsang-do province will see up to 15 centimeters. Since heavy snow is forecast across the country by tomorrow, the roads are expected to be very slippery. Keeping safe distance and driving slowly is advised when out on the roads. Tomorrow, Seoul, Chuncheon, and Daejeon will start off at -2 degrees. Highs in Seoul, Chuncheon, Gwangju, and Gyeongju will get up to 6 degrees Celsius. Today, snow will move away later tonight in Seoul and other areas from tomorrow morning. There's no severe cold spell for the time being. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that brings an end to this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Stay warm.